It's 9:30. I'll call the meeting to order, and the first item of business is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor.
Procedurally, so I didn't even think of this. No, I just realized that. Full transparency, I'm not wearing my glasses and it's throwing me off. I'd like to move to amend the agenda, or I would like to make a recommendation to amend the agenda to include a verbal update under information items in relation to the OPP or the provincial funding in relation to the OPP increase that I've read about in the news. So Councillor Finch has the motion, and
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that the agenda be adopted as amended to include OPP correspondence.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Having adopted the agenda, is there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Not seeing any. Minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a mover? Anyone? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that the minutes from the November 20th, 2024 council meeting be adopted and printed as circulated.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. No public comment period, no public meetings and drainage meetings. We have a delegation at 10 o'clock and a roughly timed item at 10:30 on item 9.4C. So we'll go down then to 8.1A, Roads Division, Report 2023-154 from the Director of Public Services regarding a Public Services Multi-Departmental Report. Director Oliver, is there anything you'd like to highlight for Council before I ask them for questions?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. No, nothing to update this time.
Questions from Council on the report? Sorry. Questions from Council on the report? Not seeing any. Do I have a mover? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that report 2023-154 from the Director of Public Services be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 8.1B, Report 2024-148 from the Director of Public Services regarding the demolition of 8 Commissioner Street Public Works Building. Director Oliver, is there anything you want to highlight for Council?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. No, nothing to update right now.
Questions from Council on the report? Councillor Mitchell.
So what I see, Steve, is that we've sold the former Embro shop and for $17,319, and the purchaser is going to demolish it other than the concrete. Is it?
That's correct.
So we're coming out ahead on the deal.
That's correct. A little bit of background. Former CEO Don McLeod and myself discussed some options of how to get to remove that building off the site, seeing we're keeping the property for future use. We initially thought about tendering it for demolition, and then after a bit of research with some other area municipalities and how they've dealt with similar situations, we come across this idea of trying it on gov deals to get rid of it that way, and that would cover some of the removal costs of the concrete. So instead of paying one large cost for the complete demolition, removal of the building, we'll be able to recoup some of those costs in the removal of that building.
That's good. When I first looked at it, I thought it's going to cost us $17,000. Then reread it. No, that's better. Does this include the little sand shed that was there?
No, it doesn't. We had those buildings, so there was one there and there's one at the Contour shop, the ZMF building location as well. They were built at the same time. They're quite old, they're wooden structures. We had them assessed probably 10 years ago and they didn't assess very well then. So there wasn't much value to them, so I think we'll just be doing a removal. We may even try that in-house, so we haven't discussed that yet. But
Okay. And regarding the concerns about grinding the concrete on site for noise, assuming that you can get somebody to come and do such a small job, how long would it take as an estimate?
It depends on what they find for footings and foundations. We do have engineered drawings that we would provide them. Problem is they don't, the footings could be twice the size of what they say in the drawings, depending on what kind of ground conditions back in 1979 when they built the buildings, right? 79, 78. It could be as little as 2 to 3 days. It could be up to a week for crushing, depending what they come across.
Okay.
The advantage of crushing on site is, and we have the material for backfill, we don't have to haul that in. So there's costs in hauling, on the material and the hauling of that to backfill to a level surface again. So we would be able to avoid that cost. Traditionally, crushing on site is a little more money than just removal, but then you got the aggregate there to use, so you kind of balance it out that way. So there's investigation, and we got to get some more costs, evaluations, and see where we go with that.
Okay, so it'll come down to what's the best dollar.
100%, and just keeping in mind the location of it, and we don't want to disturb people. I mean, wintertime, they would probably do it in the wintertime, probably better in the wintertime. People have their windows closed, they're not outside as much, and it all depends on how fast they can do it. We don't want to disrupt, because it's so close to people, residences, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Stewart.
Just on that note, and maybe not directed at you, Steve, but staff in general, we've obviously crushed, or contractors have crushed a lot of concrete just beside this building over the last year. Has there been any special permits or any complaints related to that noise or disturbance? I know it's a little further set back, but just curious.
I haven't received any, and I haven't heard from other staff that we've received any complaints from it. The history back there, when the shop was operational in Emerald, we had some issues with noise from trucks and stuff like that, so I'm just trying to avoid those issues going forward.
Any other questions? Do I have a mover? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that report 2024-148 from Director of Public Services be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? I just think this is great. This is, I mean, a relatively small amount, probably about 0.2% of a levy or something like that. But again, another example of like just looking at things a little bit differently and saying, I wonder if somebody might pay us for this. And I mean, even if the answer had been no, what did it cost us to just find out? So I think another great example of just trying to find other weird, different ways of doing stuff that literally pay off is a good thing. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And item 8.2A, Recreation and Facilities Division, Report 2024-099 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities regarding monthly departmental activities. Manager Caldwell, is there anything you'd like to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Good morning. Nothing to highlight.
Questions from council? Councillor Mitchell.
Have you received any feedback from the user groups or the general public on the fee changes?
Yeah, on the whole, I'd say we have received a few comments. We've tried to communicate with the various groups through different means that work best for them. So our minor groups, we've sent an email to specifically about their changes. From that group, we haven't received any negative comments, just a few to say that they seemed like reasonable increases. But that communication was fairly quiet. We did receive a few comments from our pickleball users. We communicated to them through a poster in program as well as through their social media groups. And on the whole, this, from what I gather through our kind of our participants that we get a lot of back and forth feedback from, the seniors were quite happy. The increase wasn't too much of a shock, but we have had a few comments about the adult rate. And so I have received a few personal emails just in response to the adult increase and the feelings of unfairness around that one. So we were just doing a little bit of education around why our fees have changed and why we've introduced a new senior and youth rate to help kind of improve and encourage access from those groups. So that's quieted down. We haven't really heard anything from our general ice drop-in users yet. I think we might hear more when the fee actually changes in the new year. We have a social post queued up for this week, so we'll be monitoring that. We've had training last week with our staff to help with the messaging, and if difficult conversations arise from this in the new year when the fees actually do increase, just how to provide some more education and direct those questions. But on the whole, it's been fairly quiet and supportive, but we'll just monitor in the new year as people actually realize and the fees do change.
The PA Day camp program, is that a pilot project, or is that something we've committed to doing ongoing?
Yeah, it's started out as a pilot project based on parental feedback from the summer, people who really liked the program and wanted the opportunity to have PA days. Because it's not something we've done before, it is still in a pilot situation, because we want to monitor the registrations and see if we actually are filling a need, and try to be mindful that we're not watering down other PA camps in the area. So far, we've seen about an average of 10 registrations, which is good for our camp. We'd ideally like to see it get up towards 16, with our camper staff ratio being 1:8. That just helps us maximize that ratio. But as of right now, it's going strong and we're having great feedback, so we'll just continue to monitor into the spring to see if we'll continue offering it next fall.
And a follow-up to that, and I didn't send you this question, but how are we staffing that? Like, do we have some of our staff from the summertime?
Yeah, it's worked out really nicely. We have a few staff from the summer who have transitioned into part-time attendant roles at our arenas. So it's been a great way to keep their foot in the door and then be able to offer this opportunity for the community and for them to get some extra hours in their area of interest. So that's kind of how it all came to be, without calling in staff, on a periodic basis.
And it was mentioned about the repairs to the Matheson shed that had been in capital budget. I checked the 24 and 25 capital budget, couldn't find it. So I just wondered, what was the estimated budget cost, and how much did we save, or how much did it cost by doing it in-house?
Yeah, sorry for the confusion on that. The Matheson roof sheds were budgeted in the 2023 capital budget, and then that project was just never completed, and the money wasn't deferred, but the project needed to be done. Our minor baseball league and Thistle Theater housed some important things in those sheds, and they were leaking quite significantly. So we had realized some savings in our capital budget this year from a laptop that we didn't purchase for the pool and a few other projects. So originally it was budgeted for $6,000, and doing it in-house, it's cost no more than $2,500 for the materials, plus staff time from a few staff on the rec and public works team.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, I think people are interested to know where little savings. The previous thing we talked was $17,000. If we can save $2,000 or $3,000 on a little project, it all adds up over the course of years. So thanks for the answers.
Any other questions for staff? Councillor Finch?
I see in here you're going to do a social media on Memorial Park. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so last year when we had the North Park Playground project, they drummed up some community input through social media to vote on 2 different color schemes. And we've been able to work with the same company through the Canoe group purchasing group. And this time we're taking a bit of a different spin. So we have a vibrant and fun option for our playground with the Zorra colors, and some purple and green drawing from the Embro colors as well. But we're also going to give the community an option to vote on a more natural color scheme this time around, bit of like a tree fort feel. So that post will be going live hopefully this afternoon, and we'll give the community a week to vote on their color scheme. And then we're open to any input too on the actual elements of the playground, because we are still in a process where we can tweak the elements within the playground itself. But should be exciting. I know last year a lot of the community got behind that little social campaign, and we really want to hear what they want to see. So it's going to be an exciting time for Umbro.
Any other questions on the report? Do I have a mover? Councillor Mitchell.
Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch, that report 2024-099 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? I was really happy to see the line in there about a job posting is live for a yoga instructor in Thamesford. A program expansion is in progress. I've often used yoga as the example of expanding recreation services because it's in such a contrast for us to the traditional recreation programming we've offered. But turns out I was right, not knowing what I was talking about. So, another example of, taking some initiative and trying to read the pulse of the community and what are people actually after. And while we don't have all the data yet, I'm sure when we get the data in, it'll show that, offering, free yoga is relatively inexpensive compared to some of the recreation services we offer that we actually charge a fee for. And if people are coming in wanting it and we have to expand the service, that's a good news recreation story that we have to make effort to expand services that people want. Because after all, that's the only reason we have those buildings is for people to use them. So good news story. Any other discussion before I call the question? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 9.1, A, Emergency Services Report 2024-157 from the Fire Chief and Manager of Emergency Services regarding monthly departmental report. Chief Doyle is not here, so to the Director of Corporate and Protective Services, Director Martin, anything you want to highlight in there before I ask Council for questions?
No, thanks.
Questions from Council on the report? Councilor Mitchell.
I did get a response by email from the chief. He's in Ottawa lobbying for whatever he's lobbying for up there, and I want to wish him luck. But he said that he would give Karen the heads up on my question. And my question's about the recruitment, and it appears there's a bit of a change of philosophy. In the past, we had X number of vacancies, and we would recruit X number of recruits to fill that. I know that there were less than 8 vacancies this year, but I believe due to the high quality of applicants, the decision was to hire 8 candidates. So my question to the chief was, are some of these candidates going to be auxiliary firefighters for the time being until vacancies open up, or how is this being handled?
So yes, from the chief, the answer was no, they wouldn't be auxiliary at this time. They are expecting some fluctuation in staffing, so they are hopeful that these numbers will bring their staffing levels to the number that they want by the end of 2025.
And I think in my own experience in talking to the chief, that in the old days, you got hired and the next day you went to calls. Now there's quite a lag time of at least 6 months before you become fully active. And so what we found in the last 5 years is that we have X number of openings. By the time we get those openings filled, we've already got X number of openings come up again. So we're always trying to catch up with, and Kevin's nodding his head over there, we're always 1 or 2 people short because of that lag time in training. So it makes sense, especially when you have a lot of good candidates to offer them, because maybe next year those people won't reapply. So I agree with what's going on here to address the staffing issues.
Any other questions? Excuse me. Any other questions from council on the report? I have a mover. Councilor Mitchell.
Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch, the report 2024-157 from the Fire Chief and Manager of Emergency Services be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 9.2A, Building Drainage and Bylaw Services, Report 2024-150 from the Bylaw Enforcement Officer regarding a monthly departmental update. And Dave, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions? Is there anything you want to highlight in the report for council before I ask them for questions?
No, there's not.
Questions from council on the report? Do I have a mover? Councillor Mitchell.
Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch, the report 2024-150 from the bylaw enforcement officer be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks. And 9.2B, report 2024-128 from the chief building official, drainage superintendent regarding monthly departmental activities. I guess Matt. Is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Nothing to highlight.
Questions from council on the report? Do I have a mover? Councillor Mitchell.
Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch, that report 2024-128 from the chief building official, drainage superintendent be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks, Matt. Nothing under financial services. 9.4 legislative services, report 2024-147 from legislative coordinator deputy clerk regarding 2024 local government week. Deputy Clerk Wetlaufer, is there anything you'd like to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
I just wanted to thank council and staff for participating in this, as well as the students and the teachers. Especially I wanted to thank Maggie. She helped me out a lot with preparing for this and running the day, so thank you, Maggie. And lastly, I just wanted to note that the kids were also really excited that their presentations were going to be on the council agenda, so just wanted to let council know that.
Questions from council on the report? I have a mover. Okay. Deputy Mayor Gray.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that report 2024-147 from the legislative coordinator / deputy clerk be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? Nobody wants to talk about the kids coming in? Councillor Finch.
I got to come in for one of the classes, and again, staff are amazing to answer all the kids' questions, and it's really exciting to have them come in and get them excited about local government and learn a little bit more. And their presentations were amazing.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We should write a letter back to each of the schools thanking them for coming in for their presentations and stuff. Somebody can, yeah, thank you. And 9.4B, report 2024-149 from the legislative coordinator deputy clerk regarding additional Kingwood subdivision street naming. Deputy Clerk Wetlaufer, is there anything you would like to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
No, I'll just leave it open for questions.
Questions from council on the report? Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Grigg.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that council directs staff to proceed with Shuin as the name for the Kingwood subdivision street.
As the mover, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, please. So as set out in the report, the list of names that we had to choose from had already gone through the vetting process and deemed appropriate for asset naming within the municipality. They all bear significance to who we are as a community, who we've been, and where we're going. What I was looking at with this was something that maybe fit some of the thematic aspects of the names that have already been selected for the subdivision, and I thought it would be great to choose to go alongside the Veteran Road Street, whatever one it is. Drive, sorry, to choose a name from the registry to honor the legacy of a name that also had family members that served in World War II. I made a quick phone call to Councillor Ron Forbes because prior to this policy, him and I went on a deep dive in the historical books on names to recommend for the Thames Springs subdivision. I provided him with the list and said, what do you think? And on the count of 3, we both said shoo-in. So that was confirmation that we were on the right track with this one, and I think it's a great way to honor those contributions made by residents of Thamesford.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I don't think we have time to do that probably before the 10 o'clock. Or do we? What do you think? Try it? Yeah, all right. My feeling adventurous. 9.4C. Okay, we're going to skip 9.4C because we have an Oxford County staff member joining virtually if you have questions for her on this. So we'll skip 9.4C and go to 11A, boards and committees. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority Board update from Board Member Mitchell.
Okay, the latest board meeting for the Upper Thames was November 26th. Agenda item, we had an update on the 2025 fee schedule. The provincial freeze is still on for planning, development, and permitting fees until the end of this year. And if you remember, a few months ago, we supported a letter from the Upper Thames signed by Mayor Ryan in support of asking the province to end that freeze at the end of this year or at some point in 2025. The Upper Thames has not received any response from the government on that. So based on that, staff did not include any fee increases in 2025 for that department. As far as all the other fees, most of them remained at 2024 levels. There were, where there were increases, they were very modest. Last year, we did some significant increases to catch up. And but this year, most of the increases are in the 1% to 2% range. There were a couple of exceptions where cost recovery was a factor, and there was also some situations where we have improved facilities, so it was made sense to increase the fees for the use of those facilities. Next item was an update on the strategic plan, which would run from 2025 to 2029. The Upper Thames has hired Platinum Leadership as consultants to facilitate this. They started out, they did 6 brainstorming sessions with management and staff. 110 staff were involved in giving their input. And then there were 2 sessions with senior management and the members of the board. About half the members of the board were able to attend. I was able to attend both of them. There was a 2.5-hour session on November the 8th, and then on November 21st, there was a 5-hour session. And what we were working on was drafting the wording to come up with our vision, our mission statement, and our core values. And that has been achieved, and once the strategic plan is done, we'll share that with everyone. The next steps are to engage with stakeholders, which would include municipalities, to get feedback on what their priorities and goals are as far as the Upper Thames. And there will be another board brainstorming session sometime in the new year. And then the Upper Thames management will develop the operational planning, timelines, etc. And the plan is to adopt the strategic plan by April, I believe. And this is all part of the many changes mandated by legislation that all conservation authorities have a watershed management strategy. So similar to how we did it, only much more intense, and these brainstorming sessions certainly took me outside of my my comfort zone, but was very interesting. We had a report, what I found probably most interesting reports we've ever had was the ice management plan and operational plans, and they were basically operation plans written in not technical. At the end of October, there were 167 permits issued so far this year, but there are also 278 clearances, which are where regulated properties where people make applications or talk to Upper Thames staff, and staff determine that no permits required. So, and there are also 43 permit applications in progress, none of those from Zorra. So it gives you some idea of the amount of workload that goes through that department. We had a presentation from staff about the updated regulated area mapping, and that is, there again, part of federal or provincial legislation to have this done, and they're doing a whole lot of work on updating the maps as to what is actually a flood zone or a wetland zone, so that they can fine-tune the regulations of where you can build and what you can build and those sort of things. And because of not only changing technology but changing environment, there's a lot of work going into that. They have finished the mapping that applies to the City of London, and they are doing they have done some outreach to residents in that area, and going into next year they will be doing more of this work for the rest of the watershed. There's one person coordinating this, but because it encompasses so many different departments, there are a total of 20 people that are working at least part of their time on this project. So it's a significant project, and it's also going to be very valuable to municipalities when determining where we can develop and where we can't develop. Normally, Upper Thames does not have a board meeting in December, but because of so many of these projects that were mandated with a deadline of December 31st of this year by the province, and those are wrapping up, we are having another board meeting on December 17th so that staff can advise the board of whether we met all the deadlines and what got done and perhaps what has to be done yet. So that's my report.
Any questions? Is there a mover? (11A)? No? Might not be one? Do we procedurally actually have to do one? No, we don't. Yeah, okay. If you're all good, we don't procedurally require one. You usually do one, but procedurally there's no need to have one, right? I mean, we normally do as a matter of practice, but there's no decision point. There's no, so, okay. All right, so next item on the agenda then is 7A, delegations. If I could ask Dick Dufton and Lisa Teeple to come up to the delegation table. I believe you're here to talk about Trojan sign on the TDRC. Dick, is that right? Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because that's not what you're here to talk about. Every year the township awards, based on public input, a senior of the year award. And it's not you. No, it is. It is you, Dick. This year, you were nominated, and council considered it enclosed to keep it a secret, and decided amongst the nominations that you would be Zorra Township Senior of the Year this year. I didn't get to know you until I first got on council 10 years ago. And since then, you turn up all over the place. This is the second time I've seen you this week. And I mean, pretty much anything to do with Trojans, Lions, anything going on in the community, you show up and Dick Dufton is there. And once I got on council and got to know you, I realized how many other people that I knew previously knew you. And I think on Monday night, you got your award from the Lions for being a member for how many years? 40 years. 40 years of being a Thamesford Lion and contributing. And I should say too, you know, the Thamesford Lions nowadays not only contributing to Thamesford, but members from Embro and contributing to projects in Embro, contributing to projects in Kintore, really getting closer and closer to being sort of the Zorra Lions really in a lot of ways, spreading out and attracting members from all over the township and supporting projects all over the township. So I'm going to see if anybody else on council wants to speak to you being our senior of the year now. Deputy Mayor Grigg.
You stole some of my notes, Mayor Ryan. So I just had a couple of notes from the submission that was made to nominate you. Dick Dufton has been a volunteer at the Thamesford Lions Club for many years, which we're learning. I was amazed at all of the long-serving members, but that 40 years is just incredible, the impact that the club has on the community because of the commitment from members like you. He's always involved in the projects the Lions have, like the river cleanup, the Christmas parade, park maintenance, etc. He has a skill set from his working career that he brings into the club and utilizes those skills and gifts to really help leverage the intentions of the Lions Club. You use that to help with the sign for the Harvey Beatty Memorial. You were right there without any hesitation, ready to roll up your sleeves and help out. We see you almost weekly helping out at the Catch the Ace down at Brenny's. You're such an asset to the Lions and to Zorra Township. On a personal note, you are someone in the community who is engaged. I really appreciate and enjoy how much you follow along with what's happening around the village and around the township. You are an encouraging person. You look for positive solutions when you come across areas of concern, and you're a supportive person, connecting with me on issues that are going on in Zorra to have meaningful conversation, and supporting me as I have sat in this role has been really meaningful, and I know I appreciate it, and I think I speak, you know, on behalf of all of Zorra that we really appreciate the way that you roll up your sleeves and really help out.
Anyone else? Dick, would you like to say anything? I mean, we know you're not prepared, so there's no pressure to impress with your comments.
All I can say is thank you very much for the recognition, and I do enjoy being part of the community and helping out in any way I can, so, and this is a surprise, so.
It was intended to be one, so.
I couldn't figure out what I had to do with a sign.
You thought you were in trouble or something. Well, it's a privilege to be able to give out awards like this and honor people in our community who step up and do their part, and frequently go like unrecognized except by the people who are, you know, around you every day seeing you do it. And I think it's important to highlight for other residents who may not know you personally your involvement in projects that they benefit from, but may not know who's actually behind them doing that work. And I think, you know, I think I know you well enough to know you're going to be pretty humble about this, but I think it's important that we highlight it for you to give you recognition, but also to highlight for other residents that when they step up and do their part, that it is recognized by their community and people do appreciate it, because that's how things really get done, and you're one of those people who gets those things done. So congratulations, and we're going to ask you to just stick around for a minute because we're going to take a break in a few minutes and there's going to be some photos and stuff. Okay? All right? And now on to some, back to regular business. And I think we have two people here to talk about the Coffee Talk Theater coming to Embro. If I could ask you to come up to the desk. And I think Councillor Finch, I'll ask you to just introduce this topic for council.
Today I asked Nicole and Christina here to speak about the Coffee Talk Theater production, I Am Enough, coming to Embro Thistle Theater in April. But actually, Nicole, it was a trick to get you here to present you with Volunteer of the Year. The key to a healthy community rests in volunteers and people like you who embody the spirit of greatness by saying, yes, I can help with that. From 4-H, OCFA, Embro Fair, EZAS, hockey, baseball, the list goes on. You have a lifetime of volunteering under your belt. You are always somehow finding the time to give back to this community, even with everything else life calls you to do, from being a wife, a mother, a daughter. You are an inspiration to so many in this community. At our last meeting, we looked over the list of nominees for this award, and when we seen your name, we all agreed this year this award had your name on it. I am very excited to have the opportunity to recognize you while I sit in this seat to tell you how helpful, patient, kind, caring, giving, selfless, amazing you are. You are a remarkable human who is so deserving of this award. Few people possess Few people possess the considerate, unselfish, loving heart that you have, and even fewer are willing to give so much of themselves. Thank you for being the wonderful person you are. Happy Volunteer of the Year Award.
Does anybody else want to speak to that? I mean, one that I'll point out that wasn't in your list was volunteering as a parent at AJ Baker, which I think is where I first met you. Your kids and my kids going to school, and endless meetings and volunteer time spent, you know, preparing for Family Fun Day and Fall Family Welcome and flipping burgers and running the candy floss machine and all those things. And again, similar to what I said about Dick is, you know, the people in our community who step up and get this stuff done. And I think a lot of the time we take it for granted in our community that there's people, and like Crystal said, you're one of those people who are like, well, Nicole will do that. And it's like, yeah, she probably will, but maybe we should actually pause and thank her, you know, for doing that. And I think a lot of time we forget that in our day-to-day life, going to all these, you know, the fall fair and the parade and all these things, and it's all good, and we are all generally grateful, but I think it's important that we actually just stop every once in a while and formally thank those people. And I think also about your ability to turn personal tragedy into something that is a benefit for our community. I think not a lot of people have the ability to even think of doing that, never mind to do it. And Nash's Car Show is something that is one of the most popular features of that event every year. It draws people to a part of the grounds that they never went to before, because there was nothing on those part of the grounds before, and now people go over there. And that literally would not have happened at all without you. So it's new things like that, reinvigorating traditions that we have as a community, and your ability to turn that adverse event for you and your family into a positive for a community is titanic. I think you probably do not appreciate how big that is in our community, how few of the 9,000 of us would have the ability to do what you did, and you probably take it a little bit for granted that you do those things, and you should not. So on behalf of council, I want to congratulate you on being the Volunteer of the Year, but thank you for all the volunteering that you do and all the millions of little ways that you help our communities, again, all of our communities in the township. So if nobody else has anything, we're going to take a break now, and then we're going to do some photos and stuff, and we have some swag for you guys, and then you can go. All right? Anybody have anything else before we take a break? Okay. Oh, yeah, thank you. Nicole, do you want to say anything?
I think he was trying to not have me talk because I talk too much. I just want to thank everyone for, again, that's just a big honor to receive. I do all these things because I love, I love living in this community. I even had some notes prepared for this, now I can't even read them. But you know, we're very lucky to live here. There is no support better than the one our community gives us, and I'm so proud to raise my kids here and to watch other people raise their kids here, see all the beautiful things that happen in Embro and Zorra, or I guess Zorra encompasses Embro too. But it's wonderful to see all these positive things. Everybody just supports everyone, and there's always positive motion going forward, and I think that is really wonderful. You don't find that everywhere. So we won't be moving. We'll just keep living here and keep keep doing things here. And I want to thank everyone for their extremely kind words. It makes me feel, I don't know, I don't feel that it just feels bigger than what I'm doing, but I appreciate the recognition from everyone and the kind words, because it makes my heart very happy. So thank you. Thank you for being such wonderful people and doing things like this. Thank you.
I'm gonna take the unusual step of actually debating you while you make those comments. But I think you'll get in a minute why I'm gonna say this.
You like to debate, though.
But it's so good. Okay, 2 reasons I'm gonna do this.
Okay.
Because if my dad was here, he would say, "You are not lucky to live here," and I think he's right. Because that's what this award is about. You're not lucky to live here. We are fortunate to live here, and we are fortunate to live here because of people like you and Dick who actually make it the community that it is that we are fortunate to be here. We're not lucky. We don't just have all the events that you volunteer in to make them happen. They don't, because that's the whole point of this award. We're not lucky. Lucky's walking along the street and finding a $20 bill. Fortunate is having people like you guys who actually put effort into making the community worthwhile to raise our children in. So I think it's an important distinction to make, that you're not lucky to live here. You make the community that you live in, and your children benefit, and all of our children benefit from your efforts to do that. So.
Was that a so there?
And I enjoyed that a little bit, Nicole.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just teasing because I know you first. So I feel like I can do that. Any other mayor, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right,
So,
let's take a 10-minute break and do some photos, and everybody can wipe their eyes, and then we'll get back to business. Can you hear us, Rebecca?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. So we're still on break, so we'll come back in 1 minute, and then I'll go to you when and if council. All right, we're not asking her to present anything on this, right? Just questions from council. So we'll only go to you if council has questions for you, Rebecca. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. It's not great, but we can. It'll work. Break, so we'll come back in 1 minute and. Yeah. Are you guys gonna? Do you want to take another few minutes and try and sort that out? You All right, 10:31, I'll call the meeting back to order, and we are at item 9.4C, Report 2024-151 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding property located at 8 Commissioner Street. CAO Larder, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
This report just comes to you with the continuation of the past report of 2024-073. And this would just get us started working with the County of Oxford and to proceed with the planning of the property.
Questions from council on the report? Councillor Mitchell.
Okay, this is being called an affordable housing / childcare facility. So are we looking at, first of all, some more information? I'm looking for some more information about the housing. Are we looking at a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, or?
We have also Rebecca Smith from Oxford County online, and she can expand further on the dynamic of how the housing's going to look like.
Okay.
Rebecca?
Hi, Council. Through the, I almost said warden, through the mayor, to the councillor's question. So realistically, if Zorra Council was willing to kind of partner with the county on this project, we'd have to issue an RFP. And through that process, we'd be looking for any eligible proponents to offer kind of a project. And we would expect to have a mix of kind of some 1, 2 bedrooms, but of course we have to wait to see what proposals are received. So we can certainly ask for some of these things through the RFP process. We just can't be too restrictive, but we can certainly ask for a mix of unit types.
And is the goal that the monthly rent for these units would fall within the parameters of that they would be affordable to people making, say, less than $30 an hour? And I know when you talked to us a year and a half ago, you had numbers about income levels and affordability levels. Is that still the goal, that the bulk of these 30 units would fall within those parameters? And how many of the 30 units potentially could be at the 80% of the base rental rates?
Through the mayor, so the project, the way that kind of the concept plan's been completed, there's about 30 units that are currently being proposed. Whether or not it's a full 30 units, we obviously have to wait for the RFP to be issued. But those kind of affordable rates, we would hope to get at least 50% of the building at the affordable rates. But of course, every developer and every proponent will have to complete their own pro forma for the project. So in terms of the actual affordable rates, because the numbers maybe have changed a little bit since I was last at your council. So if we kind of look at a 1-bedroom, the 80% of the average market rent that you alluded to is currently $949. And then that goes all the way up to the 100% of average market rent, which is just under $1,200. And those would be offered to individuals that are kind of making in the $62,000 to $75,000 range in terms of household income.
Okay. Have you done other projects that are a combination of residential and institutional as this one, or have everything you've worked on been residential up till now?
Through the mayor, so we're currently working on a project now. It's actually a former church that we're going to be adding on to with affordable, like a mixed residential building. So that's a bit of a, not the same type of combination that's proposed through this building, but it is an institutional with a residential use.
Okay. And as far as operation of the childcare, who would decide who operates the childcare? Would that be the developer, or would that be the county?
Through the mayor, to the councilor's question. So in the event, so just to keep in mind that we do have to issue an RFP, and the plan that's been provided in the staff report is what the ideal situation would be should this council proceed. We do have to obviously get people to bid on the project. So if it does proceed and a childcare facility is provided, it would actually have to be a childcare provider. So essentially the arrangement would be the developer proponent would construct the building, and they'd have to obviously charge a lease. There'd be a lease arrangement for that childcare facility. It wouldn't be the county, it would be a registered childcare provider.
Okay. And my last question, a couple more. So when we talked with you before, the way this was working was that the township would be donating the land for this project to go forward. Is that still the situation, that we would need to donate the land to make this happen?
Through the mayor, I might defer this to staff at Zorra level, but just maybe to give a quick kind of example of what we typically proceed with partnerships. It would be a case that we, in typical partnerships with the area municipalities, and in the past, the municipality has provided the land as a contribution, and quite often that's what the county does as well for these same projects. But I'll defer to Zorra staff for anything further.
So what Zorra is looking to do is, yes, they would donate the lands to the county and upon a successful RFP, they would maintain and have that piece of property. If there's no successful RFP applicant, then we would look to come back to council again, and council can decide on how they want to utilize that lands at that time. But the intention is for the county to work on finding an applicant for the property.
So I think my last question at this point anyway is, what are we voting on today? If we accept the recommendation and there's an RFP issued and accepted, does that commit us to donate the portion of the public works land, former public works land, to this project?
So the first thing I would say is there's no motion on the floor, so it would be up to council what they want to move to do with the report. Mm-hmm. The recommendation in the report is that it would be received, and that staff work with Oxford County to proceed with planning, which would not bind the township to anything other than working with the county on the planning. Mm-hmm. But it's up to council what motion they put on the floor as to what direction we would be giving to staff. I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
And we also want to keep in mind, we will be keeping the public engaged within the whole process through this. And based on the timelines, there'll be communications going out to the public on this also.
Okay, so my concern, and the reason I'm asking the question is, what role does the RFP play in all this? If, like, I agree, we need, if we're going to move forward, then we need a lot more planning, a lot more information. But my concern is if it goes to the stage at RFP, is the person that is responding to the RFP putting in their submission based on the fact that the land will be free? So I just want to, and as the mayor says, once we know what the actual motion is, we'll know better what that discussion is. But anyway, that's my questions.
Any other questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Gray.
I just want to see clarification on the response to the number of affordable units that would be anticipated in a projected 30-unit build that we're looking at today. I don't know if I heard 15 or 50. If Rebecca would be able to clarify that.
Yeah, through the mayor. So hoping for 50% of the 30 units. So I guess it would be the same 50% or hopefully 15 units. That would be the end goal. Of course, we have to receive submissions, but hopefully that answers your question.
That's a lot higher than what I had anticipated and from some previous discussions in terms of what we'd be able to get. So thank you very much for that clarification.
Any other questions from council on the report? Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Grigg.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that report 2024-151 from the Chief Administrative Officer be received as information, and that township staff work with Oxford County staff on next steps regarding an affordable housing unit and childcare facility at 8 Commissioner Street, Embro.
As the mover, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes. So it's great to see some progress on this. We've had discussions, as Councillor Mitchell highlighted there. This is a discussion that's been going on for quite some time with different locations considered and some evolution of a potential plan. My understanding from this report is this is allowing for staff to carry this forward, and we won't know exactly what it is that we're going to get until we hear from market what the interest is from developers. So this is giving staff the direction that they can take a general concept with some key features out to market and then see what comes back. We had, it's part of this report that the previous motion directed staff to engage a public consultation process. I know that's very important to the community as it is for council. And I would just ask that that as we do that, that we are providing the clarity in those communications around the process, because I think when we're looking at 30 units and 50%, we can get really hung up on a specific idea. And I think what I'm hearing from staff here in this report is that we won't really know what we're going to get until we go out to market. So I look forward to seeing the results from the RFP. I'm in support of moving forward at this stage and then being able to have more informed discussions once we have more information.
Councillor Stewart is the seconder. Any other discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree with Deputy Mayor. I'm glad to see us move forward on this what we're going to do with the former Embro Public Works Yard. It's been 14 months since our staff moved out of there into the ZMF, and it's been 10 months since we got the report on the 4 possible options of what we were going to do with it. And in that report was confirmation that there was no contamination issues that we needed to worry about, which opened it up for developing that property. Other things I like about it is that it's an apartment building included in the project, that rental housing is the one issue that hasn't been addressed in far development in Zorra Township. We've had townhouses and individual housing, but an apartment building, I know eventually there'll be one in Thamesford, but I think it's important that we move forward with looking at an apartment building, and especially one that is geared to middle-income people that can afford to live in our community. And I'm also glad that there's a daycare involved in it. I think we've seen the benefits of the daycare in Thamesford. It's proposed to be 88 spaces. I don't know how that fits for a smaller community, but I think it would just gather people from a further range or area to take advantage of it. And it appears that 88 spaces is the most efficient operating size. And that's what we've got. I believe SWAX is in the planning stages of a new facility with an 88 size daycare involved in it. I'm not sure about moving the library. I don't know enough about what the facilities are in the current town hall, if they are a problem. I do know that 8 or 10 years ago there was a proposal to move the library to the Embro Community Center, and the community said they didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep the library in a more central location. What I don't like about the proposal is that the township's contribution would be over $1 million. And I base that number on the CAO's report from June 21st, 23, which estimated that the 3 acres of land was valued at $1.5 to $3 million. So if we take the low end of the estimate, say it's valued $2 million, that's $667,000 an acre. I measured it out off the drawing, and the area proposed for the apartment project is 1.8 acres. 1.8 times 667,000 is 1.2 million. We had an opportunity 20 months ago to donate 2.5 acres of land, and if I recall, the top end of the total value for the 2.5 acres was about $100,000. The decision was made to accept another offer, which didn't pan out, so now a year and a half later, we're no closer to having an apartment building built than we were at that time. And I maintain that Zorra Township can't afford to donate $1.2 million to this project, no matter how worthy it is. Our asset management plan that we received back in June said that we have a projected funding gap of $8.3 million over the next 10 years to maintain and replace current township assets, assuming that we use up and don't replace the $1 million that we had in reserves at the time the report was written. Plus, in the 2026 capital budget, there's a little over $2 million set aside for the co-build gym in a new school in Thamesford. And add that up, that's a total of $11.3 million that we need to come up with over the next 10 years through increased taxation. Because we could borrow $2 million to pay for the gym and increase our debt payments, but the rest, I believe, would have to come out of property taxes or grants, and grants are nothing that you can count on. And I think we financed the ZMC property primarily through sales of township assets. The Embro Public Works is the last major asset that we can sell. And I don't see how we can justify spending over $1 million to do something that we could have got done for $100,000 a year and a half ago. So if what we're talking about here is that we're only looking at proceeding with more planning, getting more information, I will support the motion. If it makes any commitment to us that we're going to donate this land, then I cannot support that. I think if we were going to do this type of project, we should have done it before when it was a truly surplus land that was not going to have a huge impact on our budget going forward. But to spend over $1 million, or to not spend, but to give up potential income of over $1 million on disposal of this land, I can't support that. So I'm looking for more clarification of what exactly this motion means.
So that was a question at the end for staff on the clarification? Yeah. Yep.
I want to make sure 100% that we're not committing to donating this land, that all that we're passing is more information, because we've got very basic information here. As I said, there's some things in there that I think are important to do, but there's always things that are important to do when you got to look at the price tag, and to saddle future councils with an extra $11 million to do the things that we have to do or we want to do, I don't think that is what we should be doing.
To expand on some more information, the whole piece of property is close to, I believe it's 3 acres. So we would be donating 1.8 acres to it, with the intent that the other remaining 1.2 acres would be sold to a developer to develop some more housing opportunities there. So we would be looking at that funds, those monies be generated and put into reserves at that time. So we're looking at this as a two-piece deal within this property. So, but right now what we're doing is looking at planning, proceeding with the planning, and looking at the township being, we're not going to actually sever the property until we actually have a successful applicant, because if there's no one that's interested and we have to come back to council with a different option, we can still do that. We can still then develop it as a whole parcel to a developer. We don't want to tie our hands by just severing it at this time through the planning process, but we want to get started with Oxford County so that they're able to move forward and start getting prepared for the RFP, because we feel that right now it's going to take a lot longer. There seems like the interest has been at a slower pace right now, so it's going to take a little bit of time for Rebecca to get interested parties into this. What we can as staff do, though, because we find that this resolution is very open-ended, it's very vague, but so I'm requesting that staff bring forward to council as time, like next steps for council, so they can see what those next steps are, both with at the county level and the township level. And that might give council feel a bit more at ease, or an understanding of the project of the property that's involved.
I'll just respond to that, and then, yeah, based on that this isn't committing us anything other than more planning, more information, I will support the motion.
Deputy Mayor.
First, I have a question of clarification around the anticipated potential revenue from the sale of that property. At this point, so I know there was a report speaking to the potential value range of the property from the past. At this point, is there anything in budgeting that allocates the revenues from that property to any specific project or reserve?
No.
And then a follow-up question. Does the direction for county, for county to have all the tools they need to go out to market and see what potential there is for a developer to undertake some form of this project, does county not need to know whether or not that donated land is part of what that RFP would look like? Because if the developer is purchasing the land and building the unit versus just building the unit, county's not going to be funding the land, is my understanding. They're funding the units. So would it not be beneficial for Rebecca and county staff to have that information, maybe not as a full commitment, but I don't want to send county down a path of taking this RFP out if part of this question isn't resolved and is potentially not having the support at Zorra level.
So we're going to take a pause. You might have to repeat your question. Apparently we have a technical problem and Rebecca has dropped, and we're trying to get her to reconnect.
Perfect. Yep.
Do you want to take a break to do that? Just like 2 minutes. Okay, we'll take 2 minutes. You may have to repeat that. I'm not sure at what point she dropped out. (10:57). I'll call the meeting back to order, and we are still on item 9.4C, Report 2024-151 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding property located at 8 Commissioner Street, and we had some technical difficulties. And Rebecca, just want to confirm before we go ahead that you can hear us and that we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to Deputy Mayor Grigg, you had a question that let's just assume that Acting Director Smith didn't hear any of it and do it over again. Sorry.
Okay, I'll try to remember. So after hearing Councillor Mitchell's concerns around the component of whether or not we're donating the land, what I want to get some clarification on is if we're proceeding at this point with the planning process that includes an RFP, my understanding is that is the tool that gives you the ability to go out to market and see if development is interested in a project that meets some or all of this criteria or some variation of. Is it not part of that RFP process of seeing what that business case is for developers, that there is an assumption that this land is donated as part of that process. If we're having discussions now about whether or not we're interested in that financial commitment, does that not need to be clarified prior to meaningful assessment of market interest in this project? Or are there other next steps that this is in directing staff to do that don't include all the way out to that market analysis RFP process that you've spoken of?
Through the mayor to the councilor's question. So yes, it is preferred to have the answer to that before we issue the RFP. But maybe what I'm gathering from council is maybe we proceed, and this is just a suggestion, we proceed with some of the planning work because that is going to take some time, and maybe another information report comes forward with some of these kind of finer details before we issue the RFP. That would maybe be my suggestion. That way you work through some of the public consultation with respect to some really the planning approvals, because it would be beneficial to know whether or not council would be favorable of kind of providing that land as a contribution. It doesn't mean you're being held to that decision. It would just be in consideration of a potential affordable housing project, the land would be provided as a contribution. So I guess, long story short, it would be preferred to have that answer before we do issue to the market.
And then just as a further clarification, in the RFP process, if that's being issued by the county, what is the township's role in approving a preferred design if one is to be determined? Will Zorra Township Council have a direct role in that decision, or once we endorse this part, does it then become, does county then have the control or otherwise?
Through the mayor to the councilor's question. So it would actually be a joint RFP. So if the township is providing the land as a contribution and the county is providing capital contribution, really it's a joint RFP. And then how it would go through the process is it would be issued, we receive hopefully a variety of proposals, and then it would be a combination of county staff and township staff kind of evaluating those RFPs based on the set criteria that we proceed with. So then once that's actually scored, township staff would then have to come forward to your council to recommend the project based on the scoring that we kind of proceeded with. Then it would then go to county council. I would always wait for township council to give direction before we went back to county council. Really kind of a joint effort, but Zorra will take the lead.
Councillor.
So I think the way this motion's written, has it been read? No. Yes. Okay, sorry.
If your question is you want to change it, an amendment is not out of order.
Nope. More so clarification on what we've just discussed is that next steps regarding an affordable housing unit and childcare facility means that staff will work with county on further planning, but not necessarily up to the point of an actual RFP being issued, so that we have some sort of feedback on that, because we're still unsure whether we feel like there's value to donating the land. Is that what I'm understanding from that last answer?
That's correct. So as part of the report that was brought forward to council, that was the intent, to work with the county and start the planning process, and then another report would come back to council on the next steps with the RFP, and that we would work both with the county. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, because Councillor Mitchell went through some historical analysis that has been done, and there was a previous option which was located at the corner near the community center, which I think is what you're referring to. And I just want to try and understand the valuation. So I understand how you got to the 1.2 million valuation for this land if we were to donate it. You referenced $100,000 for the value of the land out near the corner of 35th. But the point I guess I want to try to dive into a little bit and understand is is attracting the development that we say we need, and we're all saying that we need, is contingent on it being in the right location. So when we say $100,000 versus 1.2, obviously a big difference, but the services need to be extended out to that location. That, I believe, was a $700,000 figure, for some reason sticking in my mind as a plug number to get the services there to the other location. So that adds a cost to the overall project, whether that's a donation by the township or a cost to the developer. It takes away from the viability of the project. Further, I think there was discussion about sidewalks, and obviously we'd want the community connected somehow if they're out on the outskirts of town by the community center to the rest of the community, so there'd be additional costs there. And I think the number was a couple $100,000 for that as well. So all of these added factors that, when we just look at a number like 1 million or 1.2 million and 100,000, they both have very different context in their location to the viability of bringing affordable housing and a childcare and maybe a library location to the village. So I can't put a dollar figure on certain things, but I can put a dollar figure on those added costs. And as a contractor myself who bids on these types of things, if the numbers don't work, the project doesn't happen, right? So it may seem like a sacrifice in quick and easy calculations, but I would kind of look for some feedback from you on how we value being able to find a location for a childcare, or like how do we attribute? So I guess I'm getting at is I don't think it's as easy as just comparing 100,000 to 1.2. I just want that to be sort of understood from my point of view.
And you're right on the 700,000, but if I recall, that had as much to do with extending sidewalks and other access out there. And as far as water and sewage, I think the extension there was just from the current community center location to the land that we talked about earlier. But Katie's question about the role of the RFP probably was better worded than what my concerns were, as to getting down to can we actually do an RFP without having that commitment? But I think the discussion shows the lack of current information that we have. I brought up some stuff that's a year and a half old, and numbers that were presented at that time. But I think if we should go forward on this, but we need more information about what it's going to cost, what's the possibility of it happening, what's the impact on our overall budget and I know there was nothing put in there as a revenue in our long-range planning, but what would it look like if we did put in an extra $1 million towards our long-range planning from selling this? So I think all the discussion comes back to we need more information before we can make a commitment. And how can we come up with that information without making a commitment that's based on flawed information that we have at this point?
Did you say flawed information? Could I get you to clarify that?
I shouldn't say flawed, just insufficient is a better word. Flawed is not the best. It's flawed from the fact that some of it's coming from our memory and going back and look at other reports. We need more current information.
Any other discussion? Councillor Finn?
I agree with Councillor Stewart over here. We need to not just look at the numbers, but what the community is giving us for input. Marcus and I met with folks, and the green space was definitely not in their favor. And like Kevin stated, the public works yard is much more in a better area for all of these water, sewer, everything. So I think that we need to also look at that when moving forward. I love the idea of having the child care in this building. We have a few at-home daycares, but there's constantly people on What's Up Embro looking for daycare and having to go outside of Zorra to find daycare. I think the idea of the library possibly moving out there would be a nice option. If it's a bigger facility, they could offer more programs and stuff, but I do agree that we need to get some more information and see how this RFP process is going to go.
Any other, Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to move an amendment.
Go for it.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, and that staff prepare a report for council's consideration on the land donation component by Zorra Township of Zorra and financial implications.
As the mover of the amendment, do you wish to speak to the amendment only?
Yes, so what I'm hearing is that there's some concern around the commitment to the donation of the lands as part of this project. Well, staff have made it clear that we still have, we're not committing to anything at this point, and we will still have tools in the future to make sure that we are making choices that reflect the needs of the community. I do think that separate from the planning process, there would be benefit to sectioning out this specific component of the project for this council to get better information and discuss. Councillor Mitchell has provided some historical report information, and I would like to give current staff opportunity to sort of provide some of that summary and direction so that we can have that discussion separate. My intention here is to best arm our county staff to undertake this project to get the most desired outcome for Zorra Township. And I think that dealing with this separately will help us provide clarity and get there.
Councillor Stewart is the seconder.
Yeah, I think the last portion and financial implications, the intention behind that, if I'm not mistaken, is that we're asking exactly to Councillor Mitchell's concerns, is that before we use an asset for a certain thing, let's look at what that money could be used for, the value of that asset could be used for in other ways. And I think that's that's a responsible way to go about this. I think we know collectively, I think we've been all in agreement in the past on what our communities need. And I think this project outlines and check boxes for what we need. But we do have to make the right financial decisions. I would again just sort of say what I think I said a year or so ago about the valuation of this land, is that if we only think with our accounting hats on and we choose to subdivide this into building lots for single detached homes, we get the most value out of the money. That's great, but it doesn't get us anywhere close to achieving what we want for the community. So getting what we want for the community will come at a cost, and it may be, less economically viable for us, but in the end, we actually get what we need through the process.
Just before I ask for any other questions, I just want to make sure, because this got on the floor, is there, notwithstanding other comments that council might make, is there clarity enough in that for staff to do this amendment?
Just to clarify for myself, we have two parts to this resolution. So you're looking for township staff to still work with Oxford County staff on next steps. And is that next steps the planning process for zoning, that kind of stuff? But then also prepare a report to council on the consideration of that land and the financial implications. So I'm wondering, are you expecting us to still do both, or are you waiting now on the next steps with the county until we get this second part done?
So if I could just speak, I don't want to speak to the intentions of the mover, but as I read that, it's pretty clear, do this and do that. It does not speak to sequence or anything. I don't know what the intention of the mover and the seconder is.
So the intention is to do both simultaneously. In Rebecca's response to what we're committing to at this point in terms of next steps, it wasn't all the way through to issuing our RFP. The intention is to section out the land donation component and get council to a point of endorsement in principle at the least, so that county staff will have the tools once that RFP is issued to be able to actually go to market and get clarity on what is possible to meet the wants and needs of Zorra Council and the county initiative.
So is there clarity in that? The intention of the motion is clear? Okay. Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm going to support the amendment to the motion. We've talked a lot about benefit to the community, and this is more than just an Embro decision. Certainly, Embro, the village, will benefit the most. Embro area will benefit greatly, but the impact is all of Zorra. When you're talking this kind of money, the money, you know, I live 20 kilometers from Embro, but I'm going to be impacted over the next 10 years on the financial aspect of this decision, and that's why I think it's important, and I applaud the amendment that we look at the big Zorra picture, not just what's best for the community of Embro.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Then I'm going to read it again for clarity and call the question on the amendment. Moved by Grigg, seconded by Stewart, and that staff prepare a report for council's consideration on the land donation component by the Township of Zorra and financial implications. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now, for clarity, I'm going to read the amended motion. Sorry, I guess it's there. I'll just read it off there. So the now amended motion, I think that was moved by Grigg, seconded by Stewart as well, right? Yeah, sorry. That report 2024-151 from the Chief Administrative Officer be received as information, and the township staff work with Oxford County staff on next steps regarding an affordable housing unit and childcare facility at 8 Commissioner Street, Embro, and that staff prepare a report for council consideration on the land donation component by the Township of Zorra and financial implications. Does anybody wish to speak to the now amended full motion? I will. I think this is absolutely the right way to go about doing this work, because council has a lot of questions, and the intention of this RFP process is to put something out to the market and get answers to those questions. I know from conversations Councillor Finch and I have had with many residents in Embro and surrounding area that in some ways this can be a dissatisfying process for them, because they have questions and there aren't answers. So they say, well, how do you know whether you should go ahead with this if you don't have the answers to these questions? And the answer is, well, this process should give us those answers. Whether those answers are satisfying to this council or not is a question for a later day, and we can debate those things, and everybody will bring a different perspective to it, but the process will get us those answers. The process might bring us back something that says, guess what, you're going to get 2 affordable units and a total of 10 units in total, and no library and no childcare, in which case I would expect that probably this council would say, well, we're not interested. Now what do we do? Or it might come back and say, guess what, you're going to get 20 affordable units and 50 in total, and everything, and bells and whistles, and painted purple. So I think I think we need to, for ourselves and for our residents, acknowledge that we're still in a process of finding out what can we do, what are actual options for this council and our community, and let's find out. And until we find out, there's no decision for council. I think it's a good point that this is, while most acutely, the impacts of this happening or not happening are most acutely felt by the village of Embro and surrounding area. I live about 22 kilometers away from the village of Embro, but I know neighbors who would absolutely, obviously all of us would pay any tax implications of this, but I know neighbors that would absolutely use childcare, or who go to the Embro library. And I think there's, when it comes to implementing new services like childcare, we know already that this one, the wait list for this one was filled I can't remember, 6 months before it opened. I don't know how many people are on the wait list now for it. I'm informed by Oxford County staff that if we were to open another 88 space in Tempsford, it would be filled literally like that. If we were to open an 88 space in Embro, if the school happens with the one in it, it'll be full. Like, the answer from child care staff at the county is, Oxford County is one of the lowest served counties in all of southwestern Ontario, I think all of Ontario, when it comes to childcare. So yeah, the impact of this project, from tax and services will be felt far beyond the village of Embro, similar to the childcare here. There's people with children in this childcare who don't live in the village of Tempsford or surrounding area. So I think it's really good that we keep that perspective of the potential benefits and costs to every single person in the township. And I think this resolution, especially as amended, will get council the information that it needs to make the decisions that it needs to make. So very in support of moving ahead with this and getting that information. Any other discussion before I call the question on the amended motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And, sorry, got to tidy up all these now. How do you want me to deal with that one? Now that it's amended. Yeah. Leave it to you to sort out. And so, boards and information items 12A. Resolution from the town of Tillsonburg regarding establishment of Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Stewart.
Moved by Stewart, seconded by Greg, that item 12A be received and filed for information purposes only.
Is there any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Apologize to Steve or whoever else can answer this. I didn't think of this question until just now. What is this? Are you familiar with this initiative by roads, or?
I haven't seen this particular one just till this council report. This is a bit ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue as we've felt the impact from our insurance rates going up over the years, just for these simple reasons. Like, we've got the smaller tax base, and we're seeing the higher volume of most serious accidents. You see a lot of accidents in town. They got a higher tax base. It's usually not as serious because speeds are lower. So this is an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue for many years. So yeah, we're very familiar with it, and we're dealing with the very same things.
Any other questions? Yeah, I did get it. Any, no other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I think so. Yes, I think so. Thank you. No unfinished business, no notices of motion, bylaws. Oh. Wasn't that going to be under 16? We were just talking about that. Items of community interest or no? Yeah. Under which item did you want to? I thought we said information items. Oh, yeah, go. That's fine. That's fine. Yep. Deputy Mayor Gregg.
No, I was just asking for an update from staff, and I think staff have that update.
So we received a memo back on Friday from the province regarding the OPP costs. So they have reached out to the municipalities to let us know that we will be receiving a decrease or a refund in OPP costs for 2025. At this time, it's estimated we will be receiving approximately $211,000 as our reduced amount for 2025. And once I get confirmation, I will be doing a report to council at the next council meeting.
Questions? Councilor.
Any indication of why they've changed their billing? I know there's been a lot of lobbying going on with other communities that had huge increases, 50 or 100% increases, but
I think that's a big part of it. It's just they've heard from municipalities about the large increase, and some municipalities are ranging increase anywhere from 15 to 30% of an increase, and municipalities are finding that their 2025 budget it's hitting the budget quite heavily. And so the province has come back and offered this reduction for us to be able to manage our 2025 budget.
Anyone else? Councillor Stewart.
And this is with the understanding that we just found out that 2023 increased by 200 and something thousand anyways, so how much weight should we put on the projections that were being provided by them when, like, 2 years ago, the costs after they settled all the accounts were significantly higher than what we budgeted that year anyways?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're seeing a lot of time spent by policing through other issues that are raised through, and not just at the municipal level, they're at the upper tier and it's at the province level, but the municipalities are the ones that have to cover those costs. And right now, I can't say going forward how that's going to impact 2024 or 25 either. Okay.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor.
So just for clarification, I had been tracking a lot of the advocacy in the news and then had read in the news that the province had announced some significant funding that was going to be going out to municipalities. So I had just asked, will Zorra be included in that, and do we have any idea what numbers? So I understand that there will be a report. Municipalities are at different stages in their budgeting processes, some just beginning and some position like us where we're just about done. Obviously, this is going to have some financial implications, so that will be coming in a report at our next council meeting, some recommendations from staff. But at this time, I just wanted to make sure that all members of council, not those who just hang tight on those news channels, were aware that this was something that is going to have some impact here for Zorra, whether it's enough or encompassing all of those changes to be determined. But I think the interesting thing here is that the increase that we felt here in those OPP costs were felt and were very difficult for budgets all across the province.
Anyone else? Bylaws. Councillor Stewart.
Moved by Stewart, seconded by Greg, that bylaws 61-24, 62-24, 63-24 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Items of community interest. Councillor Finch.
I only have one. December 24th, the Christmas Eve service at Knox United Church starts at 7:30.
Anyone else? Councillor Mitchell.
I have two. Sunday, December the 8th, community food and toy collection for the Salvation Army, 1 to 3 p.m. at Christchurch Hall in Lakeside. And Wednesday, December the 11th, Wisdom Wednesday at Brown Schoolhouse. There will be a bit of a Christmas concert with the St. Mary's Bell Ringers at 7:30 p.m.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor.
Calathumpian has their annual Christmas parade the Sunday before Christmas, which I believe this year is the 22nd. Yeah.
Who's going in the parade? Yeah? Anyone else? Okay. So just so you know, Councillor Finch bought the candy for the Embro parade. It's just information. Oh. Not in councillor gear. Yeah. Also, I would add on this coming Wednesday, yeah, the 11th, HACA is having a potluck that I believe all of council was invited to, 6 o'clock in Harrington Hall. Beachville Christmas lights. You guys are on that board, aren't you? Yeah. Beachville Christmas lights on Friday night at 6:30, I think. Yeah, 6:30. Oxford County is hosting their employee family skate in Zorra Township this year in Embro on Saturday afternoon at 1:30, I think it is, if anybody wants to drop in there. And I think then we have one as well on the 27th, is it? Yeah, 27th at 3 o'clock that's in Embro as well, right? Yeah. And I think that's it for items of community interest. That's all I had anyway. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Then, no closed. Confirmatory. Councillor Stewart.
Moved by Stewart, second by Greg, that bylaw 64-24, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held December 4th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time this December 4th, 2024. And further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Moved by Stewart, second by Greg, that this session of council be now adjourned and herewith closed at 11:29. And the next meeting of council be called for January 15th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. in the council chambers at the Zorra Municipal Center.
Done. Any discussion? All those. What does it say? What does it say? January 15th. December 18th. No, it should say December 18th.
This
That's
should
right.
be December 18th.
Yeah. Skipping forward to 2025.
Nice try.
6 o'clock p.m. Six o'clock, right? Again?
Could I just get you to read that again for clarification?
Moving
See, when
on.
I said it was done, you weren't.
That's right. Moved by Stewart, second by Greg, that this session of council be now adjourned and herewith closed at 11:30 now. And the next meeting of Zorra of council be called for December 18th, 2024 at 6 o'clock p.m. in the council chambers at the Zorra Municipal Center.
Is there any discussion?